Welcome back to the channel, my fellow horror enthusiasts. Tonight we venture into the echoing emptiness of deserted malls, places where shadows twist and memories linger like ghosts. Picture this, the cold, sterile gleam of fluorescent lights reflecting off polished floors, the distant hum of ventilation struggling to fill the void, and an unsettling silence that seems to press in on you. These are the backdrops for the three bone-chilling tales I'm about to share with you. Let's begin. Our first tale takes us to the heartland of America, to a once bustling mall now standing as a monument to decay. Once a hub of activity, it now lies in ruins. The air hung heavy with the scent of dust and forgotten things, a palpable reminder of the past, a testament to the life that once filled these halls. The echoes of laughter and chatter now replaced by an eerie silence. Our protagonist, a stoic security guard named Frank, patrolled the desolate corridors, his routine a lonely vigil, his footsteps echoing in the oppressive silence, each step a reminder of the emptiness that surrounded him. Frank had seen his fair share of strange occurrences during his late-night shifts, but tonight was different. The air felt charged, almost electric. The silence punctuated by an unsettling presence that sent shivers crawling down his spine. It was as if the mall itself was holding its breath. As he made his rounds, the familiar path seemed more ominous. A sound, faint yet distinct, reached his ears. The sound of footsteps, soft and measured, coming from the floor above. His pulse quickened. A mix of fear and curiosity, Frank cautiously ascended the escalator, each step a creaking protest, its metal steps groaning under his weight. The sound echoed through the empty space, amplifying his anxiety. The upper level was shrouded in an eerie darkness, a stark contrast to the dimly lit lower floor, the faint moonlight filtering through the grimy skylights, doing little to pierce the gloom. He crept forward, every sense heightened, his senses on high alert, the rhythmic thud of the footsteps growing closer. Each step he took seemed to echo louder in the silence, the rhythmic thud of the footsteps growing closer. He rounded a corner, his heart pounding in his chest, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, revealing shadows that danced on the walls, and there at the end of the desolate corridor was a figure. It stood still, almost as if it was waiting for him. It was tall and slender, draped in what appeared to be a long coat, its silhouette stark against the dim light, its back turned towards him. Frank called out, his voice trembling slightly, his voice echoing strangely in the stillness. But the figure remained motionless. He cautiously approached, his nerves on edge, but the figure remained motionless. He cautiously approached, his hand hovering over the butt of his holstered weapon. The figure didn't react, but the figure remained motionless. He cautiously approached, his hand hovering over the butt of his holstered weapon. The figure didn't react, his hand hovering over the butt of his holstered weapon. The figure didn't react, didn't even seem to acknowledge his presence. As he drew closer, didn't even seem to acknowledge his presence. As he drew closer, his flashlight beam illuminated the figure. His flashlight beam illuminated the figure, and Frank's blood ran cold. There was no one there, and Frank's blood ran cold. There was no one there, only an empty space where the figure had stood moments before. Frank stood frozen. There was no one there, only an empty space where the figure had stood moments before. Frank stood frozen, his heart pounding in his chest. Only an empty space where the figure had stood moments before. Frank stood frozen, his heart pounding in his chest, trying to rationalize what he had just witnessed. His heart pounding in his chest, trying to rationalize what he had just witnessed. The empty corridor seemed to mock him, trying to rationalize what he had just witnessed. The empty corridor seemed to mock him, the silence amplifying his fear. The empty corridor seemed to mock him, the silence amplifying his fear. He quickly scanned the area, the silence amplifying his fear. He quickly scanned the area, his flashlight beam dancing across the shuttered storefronts. He quickly scanned the area, his flashlight beam dancing across the shuttered storefronts. But there was no sign of the mysterious figure. His flashlight beam dancing across the shuttered storefronts. But there was no sign of the mysterious figure. It had vanished as quickly and inexplicably as it had appeared. Shaken to his core, but there was no sign of the mysterious figure. It had vanished as quickly and inexplicably as it had appeared. Shaken to his core, Frank retreated to the relative safety of his security office. It had vanished as quickly and inexplicably as it had appeared. Shaken to his core, Frank retreated to the relative safety of his security office, the events of the night replaying in his mind. Frank retreated to the relative safety of his security office, the events of the night replaying in his mind. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had encountered something otherworldly, the events of the night replaying in his mind. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had encountered something otherworldly, something that defied explanation. Our next tale unfolds in the decaying shell of a once trendy mall, now a haven for graffiti artists and urban explorers. The walls, once pristine, are now canvases for vibrant, chaotic art. A group of friends, eager for a thrill, decided to spend a night in the abandoned structure, their youthful bravado masking a growing unease. They had heard the stories, the whispers of strange occurrences. The group consisted of 4 friends: Jake, the self-proclaimed leader, Emily, the skeptic, Ben, the joker, and Chloe, the quiet one. Each had their own reasons for coming, but none expected what lay ahead. Armed with flashlights and fueled by adrenaline, they navigated the darkened corridors, their laughter echoing through the empty spaces. The sound seemed to mock the silence that enveloped the mall. As they ventured deeper into the mall's bowels, the weight of the building's desolation began to press down on them. The air grew thick with the musty odor of decay, a scent that clung to their clothes and filled their lungs. And the silence, broken only by their footsteps and hushed whispers, became oppressive. Every sound seemed amplified. They arrived at the entrance of a former department store, its once vibrant window displays now replaced with dusty mannequins frozen in grotesque poses. The mannequins seemed to watch them. Jake, ever the daredevil, suggested they explore the store, his eyes gleaming with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. He loved the thrill of the unknown. The others, hesitant yet unwilling to appear scared, reluctantly agreed. Peer pressure was a powerful motivator. As they stepped inside, the temperature seemed to drop, a chill settling over them like an unwelcome embrace. It was as if the store itself was alive, breathing cold air. They fanned out, their flashlight beams cutting through the darkness, illuminating racks of empty hangers and aisles strewn with debris. Suddenly, Chloe gasped, her flashlight beam trembling as it landed on a mannequin standing near the back of the store. It looked eerily lifelike. "Guys, look," she whispered, her voice tight with fear, her heart pounded in her chest. The others turned to see what had startled her, and a collective shiver ran down their spines. The atmosphere grew even more tense. The mannequin's head, which had been facing forward when they entered the store, was now turned, its vacant eyes seeming to follow their every move. It was as if it was aware of their presence. "It's probably just the wind or something," Ben offered, his voice betraying his own unease. He didn't believe his own words, but deep down, none of them believed him. The fear was palpable. The air inside the store felt heavy, charged with an unseen energy that sent shivers crawling down their spines. They continued their exploration, their earlier bravado replaced by a growing sense of dread. The night was far from over, and the worst was yet to come. Our final tale takes us to the desolate outskirts of a forgotten town, where a sprawling mall stands as a haunting reminder of a bygone era. Once a bustling center of commerce and community, it now lies in eerie silence, its grandeur faded and forgotten. This story centers around a solitary janitor named Thomas, a man hardened by life's hardships, yet still clinging to a flicker of hope. Thomas had seen better days, but he remained steadfast in his duties, finding solace in the routine of his work. Thomas, with his weathered hands and weary eyes, had seen his fair share of darkness. Each wrinkle on his face told a story of struggle and perseverance, a testament to the life he had led. He had worked in the mall for years, witnessing its slow decline from a bustling hub of activity to a desolate shell. The vibrant energy that once filled the air had long since dissipated, leaving behind only echoes of the past. Now he was the sole caretaker of its ghostly emptiness, his nights punctuated by the echoes of his own footsteps and the distant hum of machinery. The vast, empty corridors seemed to stretch on forever, a labyrinth of memories and forgotten dreams. One particularly dreary night, as Thomas made his rounds, a sound pierced the oppressive silence. the unmistakable cry of a child, faint yet undeniably real. It was a sound that didn't belong in the abandoned mall, a sound that sent shivers down his spine. He stopped, his heart pounding in his chest, and listened intently. The cry was faint but persistent, a haunting melody that seemed to call out to him from the shadows. The cry came again, a mournful wail that seemed to seep from the very walls of the mall. It was as if the building itself was weeping, mourning its lost glory and the lives that had once filled its halls. Guided by a mixture of concern and morbid curiosity, Thomas cautiously followed the sound. Each step he took was measured and deliberate, his senses heightened by the eerie atmosphere. It led him to the forgotten wing of the mall, a place where time seemed to stand still, its air thick with dust and the musty scent of decay. This part of the mall had been closed off for years, a relic of a time long past. The cries grew louder as he approached a darkened storefront, its sign barely visible beneath a thick layer of grime. Tinker Toys, where imagination runs wild. The once cheerful sign now seemed like a cruel joke, a reminder of happier times. A knot of unease tightened in Thomas's stomach. The toy store had always given him an uneasy feeling, even when it was filled with the laughter of children. The toy store had been abandoned for years, its shelves empty, its once bright colors faded to a dull gray. The air was thick with dust, and the silence was almost palpable. He pushed open the creaking door, his flashlight beam cutting through the gloom, and stepped inside. The room was filled with shadows, and the air was heavy with a sense of foreboding. The cries seemed to surround him now, echoing off the dusty shelves and broken toys scattered across the floor. It was as if the very walls were alive with the sound of the child's sorrow. He swept his flashlight beam across the room, his heart heavy with a growing sense of dread. The light revealed more broken toys and discarded items, each one a silent witness to the mall's decline. There, in the far corner, nestled amongst a pile of discarded plush toys, he saw it. A small child's shoe, its once bright colors faded and worn. Thomas's blood ran cold. The sight of the shoe filled him with a deep sense of unease. He knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that he was not alone. The feeling of being watched was overwhelming, and he could almost sense the presence of the unseen child. He called out, his voice rough with fear and concern, but the only response was the mournful wail of the unseen child. The sound echoed through the empty store, a haunting reminder of the mall's forgotten past. Thank you for joining me tonight, my fellow travelers in the dark. We've journeyed through the echoing emptiness of abandoned malls, felt the chill of unseen eyes, and heard the haunting cries of the forgotten. If you enjoyed tonight's descent into the unsettling world of abandoned malls, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and share it with your fellow horror enthusiasts. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more spine-tingling content and hit that bell icon so you don't miss out on our latest uploads. Until next time, keep your eyes peeled for the shadows, your ears open for the whispers, and remember, sometimes the things we fear the most are the things we can't see.